So can you repeat after me? If you see a job that needs to be done, just do it. Okay, so say it again. If you see a job if you see a job that needs to be done, just do it. That was what my dad taught me from about the time I was your age. That was Dad's motto. If you see something that needs to be done, just go ahead and do it. So, for example, my dad, at the end of church, he would get up, and if he was walking towards the back, and if he saw, say, a bulletin laying on a pew, he would pick it up, because that bulletin didn't belong there, and that was a job that needed to be done, and so he would do it. He'd pick it up, and he'd take it to the back, and if it was still in good shape, he'd leave it for the next service, and if it wasn't in good shape, he'd take it home and throw it away. I learned to pick up litter off the streets when I was your age, because litter doesn't belong, right? It's not supposed to be there. It's a job that needs to be done. And so Dad taught me, see that paper there? You should pick it up. And if I said something like, well, I didn't put it there, Dad didn't care. That was a job that needed to be done. And so you just do it. Okay? You with me here? So think of how you could do this in your life. So like you're at school, and maybe you'll look around and you'll see jobs that need to be done. Maybe you'll notice somebody, they're fumbling around, and suddenly you realize they don't have a pencil that they need, and you've got an extra one. And so you don't even wait for them to ask. That's a job that needs to be done, and so you hand them a pencil. Or maybe you see somebody that's on the playground and they're by themselves. They need a friend. That's a job that needs to be done. Maybe you just go over and say hi and maybe pray with them. Okay, you with me here? Think you could do this? Jesus says to the disciples, if you want to be first, you need to be last, and you need to be the servant of all. And I don't know if you ever gave any thought to that. What does that mean, to be servant of all? I remember years ago I was looking this up, and I was trying to figure out a way to talk about this, and I came across John Paul II. He had a homily on this. I'm thinking like, oh, this would be great. I'll get an answer. But all John Paul II did was choose to talk about Mother Teresa of Calcutta. And if you know that story, Mother Teresa of Calcutta is way out of my league. I don't know if she's out of yours, but I was thinking, well, if that's what it means to be servant of all, I'm not going to do very well with it. But as I was reflecting on it at that time in my life, I remembered this thing that my dad taught me. If you see a job that needs to be done, just do it. And it is a wonderful way, not the only way I'm sure, but a wonderful way of thinking about being of service to others. A job that needs to be done. You notice it and you do it. And you could think of lots of examples in your own life. But the thing that might be helpful to the adults is to consider the qualifications, the little addendums that we want to put on to my dad's phrase. We might put on something like, if you see a job that needs to be done and it's your responsibility, then you should do it. But if it's not your responsibility, I don't have to do that. See, that would be the attitude if I go into the grocery store and I'm walking towards there and I walk past a shopping cart. It's not my job to do that. That's the job of those kids. Publix is paying good money for those kids to put those carts away. It's not my job. Do some of you work in offices? Maybe you have a break room, and in some places there's all sorts of tension, drama over who's supposed to clean the break room. Because, hey, it's not my job to clean the break room. That's not what they're paying me to do. That's the job of the cleaning crew or whoever. But my dad would not allow me to have that little qualifier in his expression. It didn't make any difference that I didn't throw the litter on the ground. It didn't make any difference that it wasn't part of my job description to do whatever needed to be done. I was just supposed to do it. And sometimes the qualifier goes like this. If you see a job that needs to be done and it's fair, well, then you should do it. If it's fair, in other words, like many households are organized with everybody does a particular job, or you rotate the jobs or something like that. Because the idea, it's got to be fair. I'll do my part, but it needs to be fair. I never had chores growing up. There was no assigned task in the family at all. Because the understanding was, if you were in the kitchen and you walked by the trash bag and it was full, that was a job that needed to be done, and you were going to take the trash out. And it did not matter that you took it out the last time, or the time before that, or the time before that, or that you would say, hey, my older brother, I don't remember the last time he took the trash out. Didn't make any difference. It wasn't a question of fairness. It was a question of, did the job need to be done? Or maybe another qualifier is if you see a job that needs to be done and it won't make you look bad. It won't make you look bad, then you'll do it. Because are there not jobs that we decide that, well, I'm not going to do that. That's not going to make me really look good? Many of you would remember the night of the Last Supper. It starts with this very interesting dynamic where everybody needs their feet washed and no one will do it. It's a job that needs to be done. Everybody in the room knows that we need to get our feet washed, but nobody's going to do it. And why? Because the disciples are caught up in the same thing they were caught up in this story. They're trying to figure out who's the most important, who's the greatest. And in that day and age, if you were washing other people's feet, you were broadcasting loud and clear, I'm the lowest. I'm down at the bottom. I'm the servant. And none of the disciples wanted to be the servants. But what does Jesus do? Jesus has got all the power in the room in that moment. He can do whatever he wants. And he chooses to be a servant. He chooses. It's a job that needs to be done. And he's like, fine, I'll do it. Even though, maybe Jesus wasn't surely concerned about the fact that it would make him look bad, but the disciples were. So you see these qualifiers. It's not my responsibility. It's not fair. It'll make me look bad. These responsibilities, they're sort of the problem. That's what gets in the way of us being servants. If you could put in your mind the image of an old English butler. Did you ever see movies or TV shows where the butler is in the room and he's standing there and he's got the little, the cloth over his arm and he's just standing there. And what is he doing? He's simply looking for an opportunity to serve. That's his attitude. That's his job, if you will. That's what he is out to do. And when we put these qualifiers on, we don't have that heart. We don't have the heart of a servant. We more have the heart of a business person. We want to make a business transaction out of it. We're asking ourselves things like, well, if I do this, what am I going to get out of it? Or what am I going to lose? I mean, some teenagers here, maybe I'm not the only adult that ever encouraged you in the lunchroom to go, for heaven's sakes, and help out the poor kid who's sitting by himself. Because the reason he's sitting by himself, he doesn't know anybody, and he doesn't have any sense of what the social arrangements of a school cafeteria are. But why don't teenagers do that? And adults, us, why didn't we do this when we were of that age? Because it was going to look bad. Because the kid who was sitting over there by himself, maybe he is projecting an image that it doesn't look like, well, he's one of the cool kids. And we didn't want to be seen with someone who looked like that. And so we just did this business transaction and we said, well, I can see the job that needs to be done, but I'm not doing it because it'll make me look bad in front of my friends. It's a business deal. We don't want to have that. That's not what Jesus is asking of us. And so I appreciate that this is hard. It's not too hard, I will admit, to take a shopping cart into the grocery store with me. That's pretty easy. But there are certainly times when you and I will see things that need to be done. And it's going to be hard to say, okay, that's a job that needs to get done, and I can do it, and I should do it. Because we're going to want to think this way. We're going to want to know, well, is this going to hurt our social standing, our worldly success, our pride even? And we just need to get that out of our mind. Because Jesus is saying, hey, you want to be the greatest in the kingdom? You need to do this. You need to serve. And mind you, that's not greatest in the kingdom in terms of popularity and likes and all that kind of stuff on social media. That's not what it's about. The idea is not at some point to have someone give you an award because, oh, you were servant of all, and here you're at the top of the heap. No, you're the top of the heap in your life. That is, Jesus promises us an abundant life, this meaningful, purposeful, abundant life. You want to have that life? You want to be at the top of your game, to use that analogy? Jesus is saying, oh, it's pretty easy to do. Don't go after all the normal things that think will get you to the top, so to speak. You want to be at the top of your game? You just need to be the servant of all.